House to Home, presented by Remax Diamond Realty.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to House to Home. I'm Jason Salas. There is Liz Duenas and there is Gina Campos in their office downtown, and I'm up here in Harmon. But because of the magic of video conferencing, we are all going to join together and talk to you about a variety of things, and including, well, technically, we're just talking about one thing of which there are a variety, and that is different types of mortgage products. Because Gina, why don't you set us off? Because I know last week we had a really, really cool guest, Michael Rudolph from Norcom Mortgage, and he was saying that you have to get pre-qualified, but there are many different types of mortgage products underneath that umbrella, and it's important to know which you need, right?
Yeah. So we promote the idea that before you go shopping, you have an idea of what you can spend, and perhaps even more important, what you want to spend. And that usually boils down to many of my customers are sensitive about the monthly mortgage payment. So even if they qualify for 600,000, they always say, what if I just want to spend this much? Well, okay, then we need, number one, all the products will qualify you based on what you want to spend every month. That's true. But when it comes to mortgages, there are different types of mortgages available. It's not just one kind. There are different kinds. Like there are many types of customers and buyers out there that are looking for homes. There is at least a handful of mortgages that you can select from. So we like to ask the important question of how much of a down payment, if any, do you have saved up to go towards the loan? And I also say, even if you have a down payment saved up, if you've never bought a home before, there are loan products that you can apply, that you can borrow up to 100% of the cost of the home. And so if you haven't used one of these products and you do qualify for them, I say use it now, because you won't be able to use it once you buy a home. The next time you go out there for a mortgage, you won't be able to use it. So my pitch is, even if you have a down payment, you might want to entertain the idea of checking to see if you qualify for a VA loan or an RD loan. And those two products are 100% of the cost of the home. But on the VA loan, you must have been in the military. And on an RD loan, the prerequisite for that is you cannot have owned a home within the last 2 years. It could have been 2 years ago, but within the last 2 years, you cannot have owned a home.
So that's a fixed window of the last 24 months of your life. You cannot have home ownership, and then you could in fact qualify for this. Liz, are you seeing a lot of people aware of this and actually saying, I would like to avail of a certain type of mortgage product, or do people just often kind of fly blind?
I don't think people are aware of the different loan types. As Gina mentioned, there are different ones. They go to the bank and they pretty much try to get their guidance from either the realtor to help them go to a particular bank, or they get their guidance from their loan officer. But it's good to research to see what is available and what the down payments are, what the interest rates are. So recently we've been promoting, because the interest rates have increased quite a bit to 6%, and sometimes even more. We've been kind of promoting that they look at adjustable rates. So there are fixed rate mortgages with the interest rates of 6% and higher. The adjustable rates are lower. There VA loan, there's rural development loan that Gina was talking about that guarantees up to 100%. Now, the problem is when people hear it's 100% type loan, they seem to have the impression that it's 100%. Even with VA, sometimes we get people to think it's 100% guaranteed by VA. So they come thinking, oh, I can get a loan. I don't have to put anything down, but there's still fees associated with the loans. So even though it's 100%, I always tell them, did you talk to the loan officer to find out how much is required out of pocket? Because in any of these loans, you have your closing fees. Their fees is a percentage of 1% or 2% or even less than that, depending on your credit score. And then you have your escrow fees, you have your recording fees. So there's a number of fees that, you know, they have to be aware of and how much monies are required out of pocket.
And
So
that is not included in what Gina typically said, where 100% of the cost of the house itself is covered in everything, but these additional fees are separate of that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and bear in mind as
And this
well
bites a
that
lot of people in the butt, right? Because they don't take that in consideration.
and bear in mind your credit score. What does your credit score have to do with the loan? Your credit score will dictate which loan you can avail yourself to. If you have a high credit score, it's an advantage to try to get a better interest. If your credit score is low, for example, Guam Housing does have a federal loan that's available. If all these banks turn you down because of for credit issues or your loan score is very low, you could try to avail yourself with a federal type loan associated with the Guam Housing. Again, there's still requirements that go along with it and out of pocket expenses. Yeah, if you're buying, it could be complicated, but if you get a good realtor to help you go through the process and give you some pointers on which direction to go. Mm-hmm. And that's what Gina and I try to do.
Well, Gina, since we're talking about maybe some common misconceptions that people do when they go through the pre-qualification process and the mortgage application process, do you typically see people say, okay, well, I've looked at a couple homes, they range in price from 400,000 to 600,000. I'm just going to ask for the highest end because by default that means I would have already be qualified for everything underneath it. And when you're applying for a loan for a mortgage, should you actually go for the specific amount that you're after instead of just like shoot high and then like I'm covered?
I can
see how people would take that approach, right? You would just say, okay, well, if I got approved for 600,000, then 400,000 is easy.
If you haven't fallen in love with something, if you're not going in there for a specific product, you just want to know, hey, what's my buying power? I'm already out with a realtor and I want to know if I fall in love with a home, what am I able to do? If that's where you're at, then yes, absolutely. The loan officer is going to ask you, you're going to tell them. And most of these banks now, you could log into their website and you could do the pre-qualification. So you can actually do it without speaking to somebody. So let's say you do that. You plug in your income and you plug in your long-term debt. So they define that as any bills that you still have 6 months or more to pay on. If it's within a 6-month window, then they can, they'll say, okay, we're not going to count that against you because it's practically paid off.
So these are obligations like cars, other types of property, maybe your kids' braces or, things like that. Like, do they consider kids' braces and tuition as long-term debt?
No, tuition, I know they don't consider. Rent, they don't consider. Your children's
braces probably not, because that's not like, yeah, and that's cosmetic, and cosmetic typically isn't covered. That's elective.
Well, it's a debt that I don't believe is recorded anywhere against you, right? So
yeah.
Credit cards are, those things are reported. So long-term debt, dental bills, yeah, you're going to pay that off in a year or two. If you're not, you better find a new dentist is what I'm thinking. But let's say,
Invisalign.
Okay, yeah, let's say you go in and that's, listen, I just started shopping. These are my list of debts. This is my income. Tell me, what am I able to borrow? And then that's your pre-qualification. If you've already fallen in love with a home and you want to be specific and say, listen, I fell in love with this home and it's 599,000. Okay, the loan officer is going to qualify you for that amount and tell you. And the thing we always want we want the consumers out there to be aware of, not only is it important for you to find out what it's going to cost you. If I borrow $599,000 from you to buy this house that I fell in love with, what do I need to pay you, or what do I need to pay as a closing cost to get that loan? And the other thing is, and what will my monthly payment look like? I want to know the good, the bad, the ugly, because those things are the things you have to live with. So you should find out right now. And we do, Liz and I have noticed we've had buyers pre-qualify and come back to us, and we've asked, and they said, oh, we have great news, we pre-qualify, so 599 is not an issue. And we want to know, hey, so are you comfortable with the monthly mortgage payment? Oh, we didn't go over that yet. Oh, that's kind of important right now, because once you put in your offer and you're locked in this deal and you close the loan and you all of a sudden tell me, Gina, I got my monthly payment and I'm not comfortable with it. I can do it, but I'm not comfortable with it. Well, what are we going to do at that point? So you need to find out now what that looks like.
And Gina, I'm a big movie nerd, so I love the fact that you reference the good, the bad, and the ugly. All right. Hopefully, you won't have that dramatic an experience when you're applying for a loan. Yeah. But Liz, one thing that I was talking with some friends from one of the lending companies last week when we had a special series here on the news is that if you should, for whatever reason, happen to apply for a mortgage loan, and for whatever reason you get declined, you don't make it, either you ask for too much or your credit score is insufficient or whatever the situation is, right? That is not information that is going to haunt you as far as you being declined with that particular bank. That's not going to be publicly available information.
No, which brings me to bring up, there are government insured loans. So, for example, there's there's the FHA loans. They're federal insured loans, government-backed loans that they put this in the market so that it will help home ownership, making it more accessible. So we've got the FHA loans, we've got the USDA loans, and of course the VA loans. These are loans that would help people with lower. The VA loan, of course, has its own program, but with the USDA and the FHA loans, your credit score could be as low as 580. For example, there's also a loan with Guam Housing that if you have been denied from the banks, they can help you, of course, provided you have the required down payments and such. But we've had buyers that were declined from the banks and still have an opportunity to try with a different loan program. So that's why I'm saying navigating through the loan process could be difficult unless you have someone that can guide you through it. So there are different loan types out there. Even though you've been declined with one, there's still hope. In fact, I'm helping someone right now that does, between the two partners, they may not be able to buy a home based on their income, but then if they took on an additional party, a family member, then between the three, there is a possibility that they could get a home instead of renting. So renting versus owning their own property and paying, the amount that they're paying for rent, they can convert that into a mortgage payment and the property belongs to them. So Gina and I normally, we always ask the question, if you're renting and paying this amount, you could be owning your own home. And then we kind of guide them through the process. You're going to need A, B, C, D, and help them, channel them to a loan officer to get them pre-qualified. But again, I want to emphasize there are different loan types, and not equal for all buyers. Is just dependent on their financial backing and their document to support the purchase.
Well, we like to think optimistically and positive here on House to Home. So we speak as if you are going to get, you're going to get that mortgage, you're going to get the home of your dreams. But if for whatever reason it does not, ladies, I think we've made the point very, very well, that it's not the end of the world and it's not the end of the deal. There are other avenues that you, if you have a experienced realtor like Liz and Gina, that you could pursue, or they could, work a little magic and, use some of their experience over the combined, 50 years that you've been doing this, to make it work.
Yeah, and sometimes people try for 1 year, they're not able to buy. Gina and I know people that this year they're not able to, but we prep them so that by next year or the year after, they do have the ability to purchase, right, Gina?
Absolutely. Jace, it's a strategy. If the buyer is willing to put in the effort, we are willing to put in the experience and guide you to the right lender. I always tell people, there are certain things that have happened in your life that is going to make it near impossible to get a mortgage. And one of them is really, bad credit, your job situation. There are there are some things we can't fix, but let's say all of those things have been ironed out. We are able to guide you. I mean, last week I spent my week helping a customer, and she already identified the building, but her thing was, Gina, I'm going to have to do ABC. I'm going to have to do a lot of work. So I'm going to buy the building, but I only want to put 10% down. Okay, well, what do we need to do to make that happen? And so I went around with her to different lenders. And in the background, I was calling the lenders to say, listen, that I know that program's not going to work for her because I've already spoken to her. So that's not the right product. That's not the right product. And we came up with the right product. And it's just about being able to write, I can ask the right questions because I've done this long enough to know Liz can ask the right questions. Perhaps your realtor knows what questions to ask, but you need to know that so that you could really negotiate with the loan officers and get the right product for, like, for instance, my customer, she's just too busy to be having those conversations.
And that's completely fair. So that's some people's lifestyle. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, so I was having that conversation and then calling her and saying, okay, listen, this is what they can offer. I found a product that will do 90% loan, 10% down. She's happy with it. She's working with a loan officer. I'm out of the game for a little bit until she needs me to step in. And that's how we work. That's how your realtor works.
And that is the literal definition of an agent. And a very, very good one. Okay, ladies, before I let you go, I did want to give you like a little bit of a pop quiz, right? Because I just had something in mind, right? I remember when I first graduated from college, right, back in 96, 27 years ago, the average age for at least my peer group of my friends and my classmates that were getting the mortgage for their first home was around 23, 24, right? That's a ballpark because that means that either people put in like 4 years of college, or for people that went into military service, they've had 4 years of service on their docket, or some people became cops or firefighters, and they got good benefits and they saved up some money, or people just like they went to work and they saved up, right? In your experience now in the year 2023, in that almost 3 decades since, has the average age of people, young people, getting their first home, has it actually gotten younger, or are people waiting a couple more years beyond 2020, 22, 23?
Oh my goodness.
I told you it was an easy one.
Yeah, I think some are waiting. It just depends on the individual, but the ones we've been working with, some of them are waiting. Actually, the people that come to us say, is this a good time to buy, or should we wait for prices to drop? And we're telling them the prices will not drop. As time progresses, prices continue to increase. If Gina and I know what prices are today, we would have bought a lot of property, right, Gina? Way back when.
And that's good because young people are at least market aware. Because my generation was not. We were completely ignorant.
But Jace, so I think the age has, and you say that, and I remember, yes, my husband and I bought our first property when we were 24.
See, there you go.
23, actually 23, 24, 25.
Which, of course, for you was like 5 years ago, right?
6.
But yeah, and I mean that always kind of like, even with my parents' generation, that was kind of like the time. It's like you graduate from high school, you either go to college or you get into the workforce, save up for a few years, and then at 22, 23, you get the home of your dreams, and then you got a 30-year loan, and that's more or less your lifestyle for them.
Then it's certainly the age group of people buying, in my opinion, based on the people I'm working with, it has gone up a lot.
Okay, so closer to 30 maybe.
I think it's very unusual now for anyone in the 22 to 25.
Bye.
Okay. Okay, now I'm intrigued because, ladies, is that because people are trying to get homes that are fancier, or is the market kind of like pricing them out, or like other macroeconomic conditions, or is it just, people just aren't making enough?
Or are people changing?
Yeah. Or
mean,
maybe young people like traveling more, and they want to still enjoy being a kid for a few more years before
I think it's a combination, Jace. I mean, we're seeing younger generation at that age level. Many of them are still staying at home. Some of them have become a little independent and they'd rather rent for now until they decide what they want to do. I mean, there's a very small percentage. My nephew, I think he's only 20 something, and he bought a piece of land. I just talked to him the other day. He's only 23, 24. He bought a piece of land and he's trying to build on it, but slowly. He put a container on it. So there's that small percentage. But I think in general, many are still living at home right now because prices have gone up. So I think it's a combination of the generation and a combination of prices going up right now, right, Gina? It's the same.
Well, when I first bought back then, to talk about 100% financing was absolutely impossible. If I walked into a bank and I said I wanted 100% loan, I think the security guard would have picked me up, thrown me out.
No, you know what they would have done? They would have said, "Oh, this conversation is recorded for quality purposes," and all it meant was we're going to record this so we can laugh at you at the Christmas party because we're going to play this back.
Yeah, but Jason, the loan type then, Jason, is 80-20. When I started real estate in the 90s, it's 80-20, 20% down. Yeah, closing costs. And now, that's, it's kind of like we're going back towards that time frame.
Yeah. And if you go to a bank now and you say, I want a first-time home buyer loan, that is a 90% loan, 10% down. That's what the first-time home buyer loan program looks like. Back then, the first-time home buyer loan, oh yeah, no problem, 80-20. Second-time home buyer loan, yeah, 80-20. Investor loan, yeah, that's 70-30. So, I mean, that was my time period, right? That's what we had to deal with.
Well, I do know, I read a lot, and as you guys know, and I know that one thing that is very emblematic of Generation Z, like the young people these days that kind of like fit that age demographic, is they're very, very cost conscious. They're aware of money and the value of money. And I know that they don't want to do what my generation did, which is immediately get into debt for decades at a time. And, I know some friends of mine that are, we're approaching 50 and we still live like check to check. This younger generation wants to actually have maybe a little bit more balance and maybe say, okay, I'm willing to wait maybe like 5, 6, 7, 8 more years and maybe be in my young 30s when I get my first home, but it's going to be a really, really nice home, maybe when I'm like middle management age. So I'm not sure. Maybe that's something.
Yeah, but Jason, Gina and I want to point out the loan types now. You could get a 95.5 or a 3% down, 97.3, 95.5, or 90.10. These are loan types that were unheard of during the early days. So now it's advantageous for anyone to look into, purchasing a home, knowing that these are the loan types.
So you youngsters, listen to Auntie Liz. If there's a really good deal, you got to pounce on that. These things.
Yes,
the situation may not be around forever like that.
And hopefully over time, the interest rates will stop to drop. And once the interest rates start to drop, jump on it and take advantage of these loan types.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so young people, listen up, because you just got amazing financial advice. Well, real estate advice, but some numbers in there too. Okay.
We leave the banking to the bankers and leave the real estate to the realtors.
There you go. And you leave the questions to me because you guys have all the answers. All right. Thank you so much, Liz and Gina. I appreciate it as always.
Thank you, Jason.
House to Home, presented by RE/MAX Diamond Realty.